There are some directors that I have worked with in the past who don't want you to see how what your performance looks like before it's actually on. They don't want you to record it or have a look at it or listen to it or anything. I've always found that a little puzzling. It's obviously foolishness to do that. There's very little point to limiting someone's ability to see what's going on, find the flaws, and improve on it, and instead have to rely on the director for absolutely everything, which it's just very strange. I think that the assumption that they have is that the player, I may have mentioned this in a previous video, that the singer, the performer, the player will clam up. They will shut down the parts of themselves that are unique, and I think it's an assumption of immaturity on the part of the performer. And while it may be reasonable to consider that with very young performers who are at an age where they consider other people's opinions more valid than their own, more interesting than their own, and that they are worried about standing out. Well, when you're a performer, you have to stand out for the most part, unless you're trying to blend, in which case you want to find out if you're blending properly. So there's this is why there's mirrors in dance studios. You can see it and fix it immediately, and it seems very strange to me to deprive others of this. Now, not very many directors do this, and again, I think it's mostly those who have become accustomed to the problem of working with the young and unsure. Nevertheless, it is something which I would advise you to actually do the opposite of. Find some way to record your performances and go over them, make sure of them. Everyone does this, from singers to football players. It's hugely important to be able to identify your own stuff. Whenever you see your own mistakes, when you see your own performance, when you see your own strengths, it reinforces them in your mind, and you have a much clearer idea of what needs to be done, both to fix the good, or both to fix the bad and to improve the good. As for me, I have had 15 of these videos so far. This is number 16, and I need to have a look back over them. Now, if you've been following along, you know that the whole idea of this thing is specifically to do exactly what I'm saying here, to look at the abilities that I have for speaking off the cuff, ad hoc, on camera, with minimal notes and no script, and consider my various strengths and weaknesses in them. To that end, I've written down some of my weaknesses to make sure that I have not forgotten any. Alright, first of all, I tend to move. I tend to move around when I talk, which is alright generally, I imagine. It could be possibly irritating, but the fact is, it's really distracting whenever you're on video and in a still setting like this. I have the thing that I tend to do where my eyes dart about. And this is partially because my mental visualization of things, see, I just did it there, my mental visualization of things is actually, in fact, visualizing. When I'm looking around, I'm actually looking at different things in my mind. I have various mouth habits that are in desperate need of fixing, especially when I'm nervous, and for some reason I find myself a little nervous when talking to you here. I am conscious of the fact that I want to get it right. I am conscious of the fact that I have these various problems, and that consciousness exacerbates them. Not very helpful, but something to pay attention to and something to work on. I have, again, as I just demonstrated, a bad habit of humming and umming. something I need to kill forthwith. There's a variety of other weird little things where I'll give a false start to saying a sentence, stuff like that. None of these I have trouble with when I'm using a script. When I have a script, I'm actually pretty smooth from the get-go and polished fairly easily after that. And while, like with any craft, this will continue, I'll continue to improve on it as I go along, probably for the rest of my life. It's something which I know that I have an advantage with a script. This means that organizing my thoughts on the fly is something I need to work on as well. So I need practice, which is what I'm doing here. I need to record myself and have a look at these things, which is also what I'm doing here. I recommend you do the same for whatever it is that you need to actually do, whether it be practicing your smile in the mirror to make sure that it makes sense, which I've never done, but I've read in various places that it's not a bad idea. You may feel silly doing it, but the fact of it is performers do silly looking things all the time in the name of limbering up, of practicing, of trying techniques, and warming up, and so forth. It's not a bad thing. I just haven't done it very much because I really don't care. Now, be careful not to tamp down the parts of you that are interesting and fun and good and different from everybody else in a positive way. There are plenty of positive differences as well as the bad ones. I know that I have certain verbal and visual tics that need to be killed because they're distracting. I have some other things that I do which are just totally fine. I know that I need to practice them. I need to practice other things like my editing techniques. You'll notice perhaps various smash cuts being done sometimes for humorous effect, as well as for strictly editorial purposes, like when, traffic sounds or whatever. So these are my recommendations for you. These are my recommendations for me. And hopefully both of us will get much better at what we do. Now, fairly soon I'll be finally coming along with some of the other projects like those that I've had requested, and those take a little more production because I need to figure them out. I need to do them. What I should probably do, I'll do this. I will show you some of these projects as I am designing them, as I'm going through them, and then when they actually come through, we'll go have a look at the making of, as it were, the plans, and the making of the project and the usefulness of it. How's that? That way you get the best of both worlds, and I get more practice.